Welcome back to the Wine Lab. I'm your host, Andrea Bottasato, and today we're exploring a wine that behaves unlike any other. One that is heated, oxidized, fortified, rocked on ships, pushed to chemical extremes, and somehow emerges brighter, sharper, and more alive. This is Madeira, a wine that doesn't simply endure hardship, it improves because of it. Let's begin on the island itself. Madeira, a steep volcanic cradle rising out of the Atlantic, where vineyards cling to mountainsides so dramatic they almost seem to defy gravity. The landscape contributes character, and the wine's defining traits emerge through survival. In the 16th through 18th centuries, Madeira became a favorite provisioning stop for ships heading to distant ports: Brazil, the West Indies, the American colonies, and India. Barrels of wine were loaded for trade, not for ballast as legend sometimes claims, but for genuine commercial exchange. And on these long voyages, passing back and forth across equatorial waters, something unusual happened. The wine, exposed to heat, rocking, and long periods of gentle oxidation, returned tasting richer, deeper, and strangely transformed. Instead of spoiling, the wine improved. Someone tasted it and realized that fate had handed Madeira a remarkable gift. The discovery gave rise to one of the most beautiful traditions in wine history: Vinhos da Roda, round-trip wines intentionally sent on long sea journeys to capture that ocean-aged character. These wines, also called torna viagem, became highly prized. It's one of the rare moments when logistics and chemistry shake hands and give birth to something extraordinary. Imagine being a winemaker who improves wine quality by shipping it around the world and waiting for it to come back improved. A kind of early global enological collaboration, courtesy of ocean currents. Of course, we can't talk about Madeira without discussing fortification, because it is absolutely central to what the wine becomes. Unlike port, which is fortified with a lower proof grape spirit, Madeira is fortified with aguardente vinica, that is highly rectified and nearly neutral, typically around 95 to 96% alcohol. This clean, high-proof spirit is intentionally subtle, allowing the grape varieties and the island's unique aging and heating processes to remain the stars of the show. The spirit is added during fermentation, never after, and the moment of its addition determines the style of the finished wine. Fortify early, and the wine retains more natural sweetness. Fortify later, and it ferments toward dryness. The entire sweetness spectrum of Madeira, from austere and crystalline Cercial to the plush richness of Malmsey, is essentially choreographed by the timing of aguardente. Once fortified, the wines embark on the next chapter of their evolution. The island's producers began to replicate the effects of those warm voyages by developing heating methods on land. The first approach, estufagem, gently warms the wine in tanks or barrels in heated rooms for several months. It's controlled, reliable, and a little like putting wine in a very patient slow cooker. But the more poetic method is canteiro, where barrels rest in warm lofts and age slowly for years, sometimes decades, exposed only to the natural heat of Madeira's climate. Here, the wine oxidizes gently, concentrates, and develops the deep amber hues and lifted aromas that define the style. If estufagem is engineering, canteiro is meditation. Madeira's chemistry is as remarkable as its history. The combination of heat and oxygen produces Maillard reaction products, those toffee, coffee, and caramel notes that make even dry styles taste subtly plush. Slow oxidation develops flavors of roasted nuts, citrus oil, and old polished wood. And one of the island's signature aromatic compounds, sotolon, adds layers of walnut, curry leaf, maple syrup, or fenugreek, depending on concentration. The naturally high acidity of the grapes is the final cornerstone. It is this electric backbone that keeps Madeira lively, stable, and astonishingly fresh even after centuries. And the grapes themselves are a cast of vivid personalities. Cercial, the driest, has an angular brightness that feels quite architectural. Verdejo offers a little more generosity, carrying gentle smokiness and the memory of sea breezes. Boal turns richer with caramelized fruit and warm spice. Malvasia, often labeled Malmsey, leans into luxuriant sweetness, expressive and baroque. And then there is Tinta Negra, the island's versatile workhorse, long overlooked and now finally recognized as essential to Madeira's identity. Each grape meets fortification and heat differently, revealing its own character when pushed to those extremes. As Madeira's fame grew, it threaded itself into culture. Shakespeare even turns Madeira into dark comedy. In Henry IV, Falstaff jokes that the Duke of Clarence was drowned into a butt of Malmsey, a massive cask of sweet wine, a detail that audiences would have recognized instantly as both grotesque and indulgent. Across the ocean, the Founding Fathers adored Madeira. George Washington toasted the signing of the Declaration with it, and Jefferson kept it in steady supply. Even colonial Americans experimented with heating Madeira in their fireplaces to mimic the effects of tropical voyages. It was the 18th century version of home winemaking innovation, high risk, questionably effective, but charmingly enthusiastic. Madeira's durability made it a favorite for celebrations and solemn occasions alike. Bottles from the 1800s still open beautifully today, offering aromas of orange peel, almond, varnished wood, and the curious, comforting scent of antique bookstores. There is something profoundly moving about tasting a wine older than electricity, one that has not merely survived history, but collected it. Before we leave, let's talk briefly about naming, because it matters. Just as champagne must come from Champagne, Madeira must come from Madeira, and this is regulated by the Instituto do Vinho, do Bordado e do Artesanato de Madeira, known as IVBAM. They oversee everything from production rules to labeling and aging terminology. And here's a fascinating tidbit. Because of historical use, a handful of wineries outside Madeira, including some right here in Texas, were grandfathered in and allowed to continue using the name Madeira on certain products made long before modern restrictions took effect. Today, new producers cannot do this, but those legacy labels remain a small and interesting footnote in the world of wine law. And finally, the joy of Madeira at the table. Its remarkable acidity and oxidative depth make it one of the most flexible wines for pairing. Dry styles like Cercial shine with salty foods, almonds, oysters, sharp cheeses. Verdejo loves roasted poultry and smoked seafood. Boal wraps itself around caramelized desserts. And Malmsey steps effortlessly into the world of blue cheese, chocolate, and pecan pie. Few wines move comfortably from appetizers to dessert with such confidence. Madeira is, at its core, a story of resilience. A wine shaped by voyages, by heat, by fortification, by mistakes that became traditions, and by centuries of deliberate craft. It is a wine that should have faltered and instead became timeless. So, next time you're searching for something extraordinary, pick up a bottle of Madeira. Any age, any style, and taste a wine that learned to endure and to transform. Share it, savor it, and let it remind you that some of the world's greatest things are born from unexpected journeys. Until next time, stay curious. Cheers.